And make sure we are both pinned, so we can be seen. Tanya, hello.
Hi.
Welcome, Dr. Tanya English. I'm so excited to be hosting you today on Freedom Friday.
Woohoo.
So Tanya's specialty is a really challenging one. And yet the beauty that the beauty and the humor and the joy and the passion and the light that she's able to shine on the process of grief. I cannot wait to hear directly from her. But before I hand it over to our beautiful Tanya, I want to reflect on one of the things that I really put out when I was preparing this, and why I really wanted to meet with Tanya today in fall, as we're approaching fall, is because it is the season energetically that shows us the power of grief, the transformative power of grief. So I spoke a lot in the messaging about observing the trees, but we've had something very, very real show up for all of us right now. Fall is also hurricane season. So when you think about, and here I am in my spirally, when we think about hurricanes, the intensity of that energy and what that brings to the planet, and what its purpose is, and why it happens in this right now time, and where it chooses to go. There are no accidents. There's a reason and a purpose for this. And I've got sadness in my voice because it's challenging to process this concept. But these hurricanes come in and they do immense clearing and release. And there's a purpose to that. And there was a patient that I had yesterday who's really, she had incredible breakthroughs after recovering from COVID. She had been very, very stagnant, had incredible breakthroughs, and is in another level of processing, and just was in a state of grief that, like, again, but she was able to put words when she kind of dove deeper into it. She said, "This is the storm before the calm." It's like, I can feel that this is all rising to the surface because it's ready to be cleared out. And there's this whole other center that I'm aligning to through the intensity of this process. So when we look at that, how it shows up in our lives, whether it is like we're literally being directly impacted from the hurricane or having to process witnessing that experience, or there's some other experience emotionally that's come into our life that feels like a hurricane. It just picks us up and whoops us round and round. And then we're left like, okay. So that is where I really want to dive into with Tanya, is when we have these kinds of intense emotional experiences that can feel so overwhelmingly, get us stuck and stagnant in grief. How can we support ourselves? I mean, there is a place and purpose to just being, feeling all the feels. But then as we start to move through and become ready to process and move to the next level, what are some of the ways that we can support ourselves in opening up? So can you speak to, I would love to, whatever comes up from what I've shared, and then I'd love you to dive into, I want to say that her program, her site is called Healing with the Blues. Mm-hmm. Not healing apart from it. The healing begins even when you're in the midst of the hurricane, even when you're in the midst of recovering from that hurricane experience.
Well, there's a couple of beginnings here that I want to touch on. First of all, the beginning of blues music, which is, I'm a blues singer as well, and I have a blues band. You can look for us on Facebook and on YouTube, the Tanya English Band. And the reason why blues is a healer, and why people say that blues is a healer, is because we're bringing out that shared experience of maybe desperation, maybe of feeling hopeless, maybe of feeling like wrong has been done to us, or that we have done wrong. And when we sing or when we listen to blues music, we can identify with somebody feeling like they're going to drown in their own tears, because we've been there too. And so when we have that shared experience, so the beginning of this is healing with the blues, is because blues music helped people heal throughout time of being kidnapped from their country, put into slavery and not really having any hope of getting out of it. And they couldn't really sing about what was going on because that would get them killed. So a lot of blues music is written kind of in code. So you don't know, like it might be my man treated me bad, but it's not the physical love relationship, it's the overseer. So they're singing about like, oh, my man treated me bad, but it's not their personal man, it's the man that's making them work, or the person who owns them. So you might not realize that that's what a lot of this music is about. My beginning with blues music happened many years ago, but 27 years ago, I experienced a stillbirth with my first child, with my husband. And what happened was we had this wonderful, beautiful pregnancy. I was in chiropractic college at the time. I was finishing up, and we were having the baby, and labor never quite set up correctly. And then he was stillborn. And I had to see whether I really believe that everything happens to the highest good or not. So as I'm laying there in the hospital bed going, okay, so I'm 33. This is my first child. I'm madly in love with my husband. Why is this happening? And I kind of heard that voice going, well, do you really believe everything happens to the highest good or not? And I went down the or not for about 10 minutes and went, oh, that's not where I want to be at all. And so I said, okay, I'm going to believe that everything happens to the highest good. I had been believing that, but when you're in something like that, kind of a tragedy, you're like, okay, so like for real, where's the good? Show me where the good is, and show it to me right away. And I looked over at my husband, and he was steadfast and loving and nurturing, and the love was there. And this breaks up a lot of people in their marriage, because one person can't handle it the same way as the other person can. So I looked at him, we're looking at the ultrasound, seeing that our baby's heart is not moving. And I looked over at him and I said, are we okay? And he said, yes, we're okay. And I said, okay, then we can go through this. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it right now, because it was such a major moment to be able to look at somebody who was supposed to be supporting me and him go, yeah, we're fine, we're okay. And then to go through the actual birth process, knowing that at the end of it, what we were going to have was this beautiful baby that wasn't alive, and going, okay, well, you know what? Everybody dies. Nobody's getting out alive. We're all going to die. And this, if this is what it is, oh, I can handle that. Look at this beautiful baby. And, you know, the way I look at it is, he was so efficient at what he needed to do for his mission here on earth that he got it done in 9 months. So I didn't have a lot of blame and shame, but people tried to put it on me. They sure did. And so people blamed the midwives, people blamed me, people blamed anybody they could think of. And I said, why? Why do we have to blame? Why can't it just be another thing that happens? Because it's not denial. Of course I was sad. Of course I went through my milk coming in and having that whole issue happen too, because it's not going to stop just because the baby's not there. But here's the thing that happens. My neighbor comes over to see the baby. I have to tell her, baby didn't make it. Watch her face drop. Watch her heart drop. And she hands me a sage plant. I brought this to you. And did you know that if you eat raw sage leaves, it helps dry your milk up? I didn't know that. And there she was. She brought me the sage plant. So I was eating the leaves. And it was helping me. So little things like that happen to support you. It happened to me because I believe it's because I decided I was going to look for the good. I'm going to continue to look for the good. Seek and you'll find. What are you seeking? So how do you get out of that maelstrom of that hurricane? You stand in your truth. And in my life, it's really true. that what I seek, I will find. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for the joy. I'm looking for the love. I'm looking for the abundance. I'm looking for the healing that's going to happen as a result of, I know whenever something negative happens, there's something positive too.
Yeah.
Not bad and good. It's negative and positive. So as big as that tragedy was, there were bigger blessings coming out of it.
Yeah.
And that was 27 years ago.
I know. I want to pause you 1 second. I want
Yeah.
you to get back into your flow. So behind me, everybody can see there's a yin yang.
Mm-hmm.
And what, when we talk about the spiraling, the cyclic experience, and the expansion of looking at all that is, the yin yang really embodies that. When you look at the piece that's the pitch black dark, what do you see? Bright white light. And you're speaking to that truth. It's like, I'm at a choice point. Which direction am I going to look? What am I going to see? Is there darkness? I'm not going to deny it's not there, but is there light? Hell yeah, there's light. And look how bright it is. It's like,
it's really bright.
Like the spotlight in the middle of the dark. But you have to make that conscious choice to connect in, even in the darkest, especially in the darkest of dark times.
Yeah. And my thought was, and this, I don't know that anybody else thinks like this, but me, who knows, you never know. It's like, okay, this is happening. It's real. Everything in my life has brought me to this moment right now. Why? What am I supposed to learn from this? If I believe everything's happening for me and not to me, because I went down that road. What did I do wrong? I ate okay. Yeah, I ate great. What can I say? I took care of myself. I took walks. I had love around me. I had stress in my life, yes, but I felt I was handling it. But what happened that created that situation? And I thought, well, you know what? People who are crack addicts have babies. So I don't think I really did anything wrong. Mm-hmm. It's just a thing that happens. It's when we start putting judgment on ourselves about things that happen and we blame and shame that creates dis-ease. And if it's left untreated, it turns into disease. Mm-hmm. So there's this dis-ease, this dissonance. We can't wrap our minds around it. So we go, I'm going to shove that under the rug. I'll deal with it later. I've got stuff to do. Later comes, still don't deal with it because it's painful. Right. Later. And this is where we have dis-ease turning into disease. Mm-hmm. So the other thing that happened with blues was, that was in April, 27 years ago, 1994. In July, I went to the Mississippi Valley Blues Fest. And I went into the tent stage, and my husband, Ed, went to the main stage. He wanted to hear that band. And I said, no, I'm going to go in the tent stage because I've heard the Blind Boys of Alabama on records and I want to see them in person. And boy, did I get a healing that day. That night, I came out of the tent different than when I went in.
Wow. Because
I felt the love just flowing through me. I felt enveloped by it. I felt buoyed by it. I changed my physiology in that performance. And I came out and we met in the middle between the two stages. And he looked at me and he goes, are you okay? And we just made an announcement about this, so you can watch it on my page. But I said, yes, I am really okay. Now, that doesn't mean that everything was hunky-dory after that. And I did have to deal with some other things that were happening in my life because I had about 10 of the major stressors you can have in 1 year. So there was a long recovery from that 1 year. But the Blind Boys of Alabama helped me get that healing, feel that love. 25 years later, my friend Gloria says, I'm best friends with the last remaining blind boy of Alabama. And he heard your story because I told him and he wants to meet you. Wow. And we went to their show and had dinner with them before their show. This year, my band is playing at that tent stage and I'll be able to bring Healing with the Blues to everybody. So I'm having this See, this is what I'm saying. The blessings don't stop. Just because this terrible thing happened doesn't mean that there's not going to be amazing good coming out of it. And as soon as I turned my attention to that, and God said to me, you need to put the healing and the blues music together. And I went, how am I supposed to do that? It just happens.
So how are you doing that?
so so I have a free live healing session that I do every Tuesday in the private Facebook group, Healing with the Blues. And I sing my little song, Healing with the Blues. That's right, I'm healing with the blues. I've got nothing left to lose. That's why I'm healing with the blues. And then we do some healing, and I talk about some aspect of healing or what grief or what people are dealing with. And then we do some healing, and then I do some prayer after that. And we do that every week. So there's probably, there's over 100 of those. So if you go on if you decide to join the group, you can watch all of them, or you can show up live. And then I'm also doing a webinar I've been doing for the last year called 5 Simple Ways to Go from Grief to Relief, which is great for women who've been through that experience to start to like really pay attention to what they've been doing for themselves. And we do healing every session of that. And there's going to be, I think we have five or 6 sessions. I think there's a bonus session too. So we're doing that. That'll be October 4th to the 6th. And doing energy healing with people all over the world internationally, because the work that I do, I can do remotely, and it works remotely, and it's amazing what can happen. So teaching people that they have this power for healing, because yes, I call myself a healer, but that's only because I'm guiding people to their own healing. Right. I'm not the healer doing the healing. We all know what's doing the healing. It's right. You aligning with source energy, God energy, whatever you like to call that. I'm not trying to convert anybody to any kind of religion. It's just aligning up with love energy. Yeah. And when we do that, healing can't help but happen. And right. We have all the mechanisms within us to do that. So it's kind of amazing. And if you study, embryology for 2 weeks, you'll go, oh my gosh, how do we get here and all have our ears on the side of our head and their face in the front? I mean, like, it's unbelievable. So when you see that kind of miracle happening, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. It's amazing. It is amazing.
Yeah, it's divine alignment. I love that you keep resonating that in different ways when you speak. And that is so the greatest truth of like when you can, and to go back to the hurricane analogy, where's the most still, quiet place in nature?
In the center.
The eye of the hurricane. So if you're able to create that alignment in your life and in your experience, I mean, the reality for all of us right now is, I use the analogy in my last Freedom Friday of an ocean, but it's not just a calm ocean. It does feel like there's just this swirling that's happening around us, and you can get swept up and tossed under. But what's the key? Yeah. The key is that if you align, and like you said, you get buoyed by that connection from within, yep. That truth, that the healing that you seek is in here, but you got to be lined up in order to receive it. So all of these different angles and approaches are supporting you in aligning at an energetical level, but also returning to that conscious awareness that's at the truth for all of us.
Absolutely. I mean, I liken it to, instead of a hurricane, because I've been through hurricanes. I grew up on the Jersey Shore, so I've lived through a couple hurricanes. It's not fun. And it's very scary, and you feel like the whole building is going to come apart, and sometimes they do, and we know that there's a lot of people suffering right now. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say to anybody who's having somebody in their family or their friends suffering through these terrible storms that we've had, just hold fast, because it's really going to be okay. And I know that there are people who have died through these situations. We have to keep remembering, though, that death has no sting. It has no sting when we don't give it the sting. When we say, I know it's okay because we're all going to do it. Everybody's going to do it. Sometimes it's a horrible way to go. Sometimes it's very peaceful inside your own mother.
Mm, mm. Ah, wow. Well, any final words for us today on how we can support ourselves through our experiences?
Breathe,
Breathe.
breathe. Everybody
Okay,
breathe.
yes, everybody breathe. And that's another thing that's really powerful, because when I didn't tap into this point, but fall is the season of the lung and the large intestine. So those are the organ systems that are helping us to process our grief.
Mhm.
And what happens when we have a trauma, for so many different reasons, like we don't want to feel all those feelings. It's too much, it's overwhelming. But when you allow yourself to breathe and you allow yourself to feel and you allow it, even as that feels scary, the breath helps you to sort through it, literally.
Yep. And if I could just take a moment to tell people, if you do 4-count breathing, that's 4 in, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. If you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale through your nose for 4, and hold it out for 4. And you do that a couple of times, 32 seconds, you're going to come out of fight or flight. And you cannot heal if you're in fight or flight, but you can go back into rest, digest, and heal. That's the way your nervous system works. Look it up in Guyton's textbook of medical physiology. Intentional breathing brings more in for your life, because you can live without food for a while, you can live without water for a while, but 4 minutes without breathing. So every time you put your attention on your intention, there's no tension. So just allow yourself to have that 4-count breathing. 4-count breathing, I teach everybody. Do that. And if you really want to learn it, teach it to a little person on their way to sleep at night. It's a great way for them to learn. And the last thing I'll say is, we always can find treasure in tragedy. We can go from grief to grace. And suffering is hard, but healing is easy.
Thank you so much for sharing your heart and your wisdom. Remind us again of where you will be performing.
At the Mississippi Valley Blues Fest in Davenport, Iowa, right on the Mississippi, on the levee at LeClaire Park, September 17th. That's Friday the 17th. There's going to be some healing going on there.
Yeah. Hey, will you be recording that?
Well, that's tricky. We're going to find out if we're allowed to, because sometimes they have their own videographer for the Blues Society. So we want to make sure we don't step on any toes. But if I can do it live, I'm going to get somebody in the audience to do it live. So we'll see what happens.
I'd love to tune in.
Yeah. And it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And I just want to point out too that we did not plan this, Melissa and I, but we both have black and white on today. I have black and white pants. Wait, we gotta show our pants because this is great. Look at that.
You can't make this stuff up. I love it. Yeah.
We're just so in tune.
We are. All right, my dear. Love you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you for
Love you too, Melissa. Thank you so much.
Bye.